Okay, we're talking today to whom?
My name is, I go by the name of Dick Berrien.
Uh-huh.
I'm the curator of the Weaverville District and Fire Department Museum.
Mm-hmm.
I've been associated with the fire and the department for 52 years now. I was an active fireman for 48 years, 8 years as chief. I would like to talk a little bit how we got the museum started. It started at the wife and I was putting together some past chiefs photos, and we were doing a muster book of the department from the beginning to the present. While we were doing that work, I started to collecting unused or put aside equipment that was in the fire department and gathering it together, and hoping for the time to come when we'd have space to display it.
And we have space here in the Weaverville Fire Department, and you've got all these wonderful equipment in here from times gone past, right?
And now we do. At that time, our break came in late 1980s when the district and the department was planning for a new fire station. And they were planning to find a place for the antique hand pumper and a space for that. And with that, it was our opening to go ahead and put these items I had on display. So
these are all on display here at the Weaverville Fire Department?
That is correct. Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. And can you talk about any of these right now?
I would like to say that when we moved in 1990, when we moved over from the temporary fire station, I had a partner came in with me, and his name was Don Palmer. He was a captain in the fire department. We were partners, and when we moved over here, he took over a part of the work in the museum, and I did, and he was doing funding and fixtures, and the wife and I were doing the exhibits and other work in the museum.
Mm-hmm. And so how did this museum come about then?
And that's how the museum came about.
Okay.
I would say that the museum is open to the public,
mm-hmm.
most working days and hours,
mm-hmm.
and our super chief, our super efficient district clerk as your guide, and we do open on by request if anybody asks.
Mm-hmm. So generally your hours are most days, you think?
What was that now?
Your hours are most days?
Most working days.
Uh-huh.
And that's it's the same as the days we're here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What are we seeing here?
What you're seeing here is not very much. What we see here, buckets, an axe, and a pike pole. Pike pole was used to pull down walls. And what you see is what fire protection they had in Weaverville for over 50 years before they had an organized fire department.
And this goes back to what year, do you think?
The beginning of Weaverville in the 1850s.
1850s.
Up to the beginning of the 1900s. This is all the fire protection they had.
And this is what they use. These are the tools.
This is all this, and some of the homes had barrels and the lighters at their place. But Weaverville had a history of major fires, with most of the town burning out. And that was easily understood because the people of Weaverville was around fire or flame all the time. They used fire to heat their house. They used it, fire to lights. They used it to cook. So, and the way the town was constructed, it was most of the roofs were with flammable pine shakes. It took fire really easy. So Weaverville had a lot of major fires, lost lots of the town. And every time they lost part of the town, they get all excited and say, well, we're going to do something about it. But They never did organize a fire department. So they thought that they can take care of their problem by, they widened their streets, they improved their buildings, they made brick buildings with iron shutters, they put dirt in their ceilings. But this went on, and they keep having major fires, and even in 1870, they organized a hook and ladder company. That's just all it meant, a hook and ladder. And not much come of this, and this information we picked up from the local papers, what went on. So about I think 97, they had another major fire. And they said, well, we're going to do something about it now. So they petitioned the Board of Supervisors to form a Board of Fire Commissioners, which they did. So when the Fire Commissioners came in 1898, they didn't do too much. They set some boundaries, set some ordinance, and but also gave them authority that they could, by election, raise money. So that's just about all they did. And they didn't do anything about an organized fire department until 1905. They had another large fire. They took the Chinatown here, the lower end, and just about burned it all out. And so they said, we have to do something. So they decided, the fire commissioners, to call a meeting and that they would organize a fire department, which was done. And when they organized the fire department, they also made some purchases. They bought a hand pump. They seen a hand pumper, used hand pumper for sale in Red Bluff. They bought some hose, and they bought hose carts. And that's how we got our start in the fire department.
And that was pretty primitive at that time, right?
Well, it was pretty primitive, yeah.
Okay. What is this, Dick?
This is a mechanical bell striker. It's out of place where it's at. I'll get a little bit more into it, but underneath it they hung heavy weights, that moved it. But when an alarm was turned in town, and I'm going a little bit ahead of myself, it would set this off, and this would strike the bell.
Oh, and automatic bell striker.
Automatic bell striker, and they had to crank the weights up because that's what made it go. Mm-hmm. And this thing was able to strike the number of bells, because area in town was assigned a certain area with a number, and this was able to, wherever the box was pulled, this machine could clang out on the bell where the fire was coming in at.
So you knew exactly where the fire was?
It had a good idea where the fire is at.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Over here we have what we call a deluge gun, and this carries on fire engines, and you can put it on the ground.
Oh, this is this giant nozzle?
Yeah, this giant nozzle called deluge.
Uh-huh.
It's Eastman deluge,
mm-hmm.
and we use that and something like that even today. But when this particular gun, we used it mostly on mill fires and on log deck fires and at lumber mills throughout the county until we could start getting some more modern, lighter equipment.
Mm-hmm. So this did the purpose? It served its purpose?
Its purpose was to deliver a large stream of water where
mm-hmm.
you couldn't do it by hose.
Mm-hmm. And it did that. Do you remember any of those mill fires?
Yes, we had quite a few at log deck fires.
Mm-hmm.
The first one I was on it was at Minersville in 1954. We had the log deck on fire,
mm-hmm.
and I was with the fire. The fire department came out with this and helped us put out the log deck.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Looking at here, Dick?
Chapman fire hydrant. This is one of the two first fire hydrants in Weaverville.
Mm-hmm.
They were in town. Businessmen, two businessmen purchased these themselves and put them up on Main Street before we had a fire department.
Mm-hmm.
And that was after the fire of 1905, yeah.
Okay, and the water came from the main source?
There was a mains in town.
Mm-hmm.
So when the Weaverville Fire Department was organized, the district purchased the 2 hydrants from them, and it became the property of this one, of the district, of the fire department.
And where were the 2 hydrants located as far as?
One was located at the bandstand at Port Street, and it belonged to P.M. Paulson, the proprietor of the Union Hotel. The other one was at the lower end of town, approximately where Highway 3 comes in there, and it was put in there by a named Boyce, I believe, and he had a livery stable there, and that's where the hydrants were located. And this hydrant was interesting. Was somebody in Reading had it. We don't know how they came about it, but they told us when we formed the museum, the contact was made and said they'd like to give it to us. And we have the other hydrant, the other original hydrant.
Okay, but these are exactly the same ones that were sort of used in Weaverville.
Exactly the same thing.
Okay. We're looking at what?
We're looking at what the turnout, what firemen wore up to most 1980s into the 1990s, and
this is what you'd call a turnout gear. Huh?
Yeah, a full turnout gear ready for fire. He has a self-contained breathing apparatus, which means he has air on his back. He has on the side there a pass unit, we called it, and that unit is here. And when he activated that, if he was still or down, it will send off the alarm. It's called Pass Personal Alert Safety System.
Oh, cool! And they had it way back then.
Yeah, that was in the late 80s stuff. The turnout gear, which is his clothing, is changed so much and got a little bit better material and what have you. But basically, it's not too much change on it. But it's safety clothing what they have.
It served its purpose in the time, I guess.
Yeah, it's not. It hasn't changed too much. The air tanks are lighter now, and these tanks held about a half-hour air. The newer ones can hold up to about an hour nowadays. So these kind of change. They got better pass units.
And so these pass units are now sort of they're more up to date.
Yes, and they're required as part of their personal safety equipment.
Oh yeah. Dick, what are we seeing here then? This
exhibit is showing the uniforms that the fire department wore in the 1940s and 1950. And it was a wool shirt and pants, and they wore caps like that, and the white caps indicated they were an officer.
That had to be warm in the summertime.
Oh, I imagine it would, yeah.
Yeah, just like today. The uniforms today are pretty warm too.
And the uniform was worn, special events, and they had banquets and stuff like that.
Okay, so this would be a dispatcher?
This could be even an officer working at his desk, and that's how we portray it.
Okay.
It's a clock, you see, by Gamewell, and they're a noted fire alarm company, even today. And that is the clock was located at the fire station. It was part of the alarm system. And if you look over here, we have and we'll get back to some more of this. This is an alarm box here. And these were stationed throughout Weaverville. And if this was more, that's before we had a lot of telephones like we have today. And so that's why a person had a fire, they ran out, and they broke the glass and set off this alarm. And each box had a number unique to that thing. And that box said 2-3. There's a wheel in there that will turn and send the alarm to the fire station. It'll be 2 and a 3, and they'd know from looking at the chart where that alarm came in from. And once they broke the glass and opened the door, they broke the glass, and then they could pull this hook down, and that would set off the alarm.
And they would know exactly where it was.
That'd put them into the area where the fire was at.
Really cool. Looking at here.
Looking at here is some gas masks that came in. We used these in some in the 50s and in the 60s and what have you. And these are called all-purpose gas masks. That's really they weren't all-purpose because they didn't have they couldn't go into an area with bad air, and they phased them out for being a safety hazard. Yeah, this air pack over here had air, and it was generally used by an officer or somebody to make a quick get in and get out because it didn't have much of an air supply.
And how has it changed today?
Today, they all use a better air packs. Like I said, they got more capacity. These things kind of went out.
Okay, but they served their purpose at the time.
Yeah.
What are we looking at, Dick?
What you're looking at now is some badges from past members and some old badges. Sometime back when the chief went out, they gave him an award, and the chief generally held the positions for a year. Well, this chief was 1914, and this is his ribbon they gave him for serving, and it's gold and all that sort of. It's a pretty expensive award. And then we have some caps and booklets it goes back some distance.
So where are we now?
Let's look up the alarm system here. This is a typical alarm system even used today.
Really?
These are sprinkler heads with fusible links. There are different types that go way back to the beginning of the 1900s. And when these, they've got fusible links here, and you will see these in a lot of the hospitals and the mills and all that, all the commercial buildings. And when these things melted, then a sprinkler would take over and the alarm would sound and put the fire out.
Oh, wow, okay.
Now over here is an alarm that even used somewhat today. It's in the schools and the hospital and what have you. And this one also had a coded wheel. When this alarm was pulled, it set off a number at a nurse's station, at a janitor's station, and he could tell with a fire coming. And you'll see this, and all you have to do is pull this, and it set off the alarm.
Ooh, there it goes.
And so there's a hesitation. That's telling you that there is a fire going on.
Oh, very cool. You say they still use these today?
Yeah, something similar like that, yeah. And that had a coded box.
Excellent. For the gas masks that were used?
Throughout Weaverville here, some in the hospital. And some, they regenerated their air, and some they brought in outside air to the mask.
Okay, and how has that changed today, Dick?
They're pretty well not being used today.
They're not being used.
It's obsolete.
What do you have here?
This is it's a hand pumper. It was 1850. It always didn't look like this. We believe it was red. And in the 1980s, the department members wanted to dress it up a little bit, which wasn't proper, but it was done. And we did much research on it because there's a lot of stories on it that we didn't know, and even on the name. So, but before that, this hand pumper was used in the fire district until about 1934 when they got their first motor apparatus. It took 3 persons up on top and 4 on the bottom to pump with, and they had to go to a source of water.
Okay, so they just sort of drew the water out of a pond or a creek?
Yeah.
And they pumped this?
And they used this to pump with.
How far could they pump it to? I mean...
Well, even today, this thing will pump, and it'll throw water about 100 feet. What was the deal? When the fire department first, where they got this from was Red Bluff. And where Red Bluff got this was from Sacramento Volunteer Fire Department. And from Sacramento, it came to Red Bluff, and they started getting better equipment, and they put it up for sale for $100. $100? And Weaverville bought it, and they said when it arrived in Weaverville, it was no thing of beauty. So they took it to a paint store, an artist here in town, and he worked it over, and the men drilled with this thing just like they do a fire truck today. And this thing this hand pumper was intended to be pulled by men on the ground. Well, Weaverville terrain was a little bit difficult, so the Weaverville firemen put a tongue on it, and they were pulled by a horse. So when they had a fire alarm or a drill, they would go to the local stable and get a horse and put it on here.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
so did it actually look like this in those days? Was it painted up like this?
it wasn't painted. It was mostly red. Was a red stripe.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones that did it up here.
So you were saying?
I would say that this, what we know is that John Agnew was the maker, and it was made in Philadelphia.
Oh.
And that is a distinct deal for them. So there ain't too many hand pumpers like this Philadelphia style. Now the Philadelphia style is a double decker. They put men up on top and put them on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the hand pumpers of them days had long rows of men on each side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to pump on this very long before you're tired.
Oh, bet.
We had to do a lot of research with this here to find out this information. So like I said, they used it up to the 30s here in town, and then it went into, they didn't use it anymore. It even sat outside for a long time, and it deteriorated, and they put it in the courthouse, the basement of the courthouse for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then some women and children and some of the firemen decided they would recondition it, which they did. So that was in 1950, early, that they reconditioned this. And we used it up until about 1980, where the other firemen decided they wanted to get it reconditioned. So we made contact with the state prison at Tehachapi. Mm-hmm. The engine was sent down to them, and and this under the department's direction. This is the way it was decorated.
Great. And this is the tongue you speak of that they put onto
the tongue is underneath there.
Oh, that. Okay.
Yeah. Okay then.
I have this mannequin now, and
yeah, and this shows the actual uniform that the fire department had in 1907 on, and it was used at special events, banquets, and what have you, and they were required to wear it at parades, or they were fined or reprimanded for not doing it. So that's original shirts, shields that they came up with and built.
Okay, so this they wore for parades, but the other uniform they wore for actually fighting fires.
Most of the time, the fighting fire, they did it with their own street clothes.
Oh.
This was for special events where they had dances, they had fundraisers, what they
Mm-hmm.
So if you put your camera up on the wall, you'll see all the most of the original shirts.
Oh, these are the originals up here.
Yeah, the original shirts. Now they show where the men were assigned. Like this was a hose 1, and that was on the hose cards.
I'll be darned.
And that was a foreman on hose 3 on the hose card.
Uh-huh.
And that was right. Then goes on hose. So engine 1 was with the hand pumper.
Uh-huh.
That's their assignments. And chemical 1 was the chemical truck engine they had. So these are all original shirts and caps up above them.
Uh-huh. How interesting. So they all had their own specific assignment. Nobody did anything but what they were assigned to do.
They were really required to stay with their assignments.
Oh, how interesting. It's not like that today, is it?
No, they are assigned, but not like that.
Okay, but not exactly with their shirts saying what they're supposed to do. Here, you say the fire department, what year?
1907. Mm-hmm. And the man in the center with the big hat is the chief. That was Chief Arbuckle.
In the center, trying to get...
And on the top is a hand pumper, a hose cart rather,
mm-hmm.
that you could see it. It was the 4th of July parade, and they treated them hose carts like we do our fire engines today. They were really proud of them. They decorated them, and when they were doing their events, you'll see the men that were assigned to that hose cart there.
Mm-hmm.
And even at that period in time, Weaverville Fire Department had 2 African Americans in the department.
And this was what year?
1907.
Excellent.
Which was really unusual for black people to at that time. You know?
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
And these were really noted gentlemen in the community.
Excellent. Now we have the, are these the wives of the fire department, or?
Yes, in the 1960s, the wives got together and formed a ladies' auxiliary, and they called themselves the Sirens. Now, they were extra special. They set up a canteen in an emergency. They had arrangements with stores downtown. They can go in them anytime and get things for the canteen to take care of the firemen on the work in the fires. And they did fundraisers. They did, and they bought equipment for the fire department. And they trained as a rescue squad at one time. And they did a babysitting program where they had babysitters come in and instruct them how to being fire safe, taking care of their children. And,
excellent. Were there any women firefighters at that time?
No, this is before the women firefighters. When the women firefighters came in, then they didn't feel they had a need for it.
Looking at on the floor here?
This exhibit shows what the wildland firefighting clothing they wear. And he has the no-mech shirt and pants, a fire shelter, and a canteen.
And what year would this be?
This is, it started in, I would say, probably from the 80s to the present day. It's uniforms similar to that.
Okay, excellent. In here.
What you're seeing there is at the top shelf. It was Fire Chief Miller. He was a fire chief for 35 years, and a prominent businessman here.
Oh, he was hose one, huh?
Well, he put that on it because it should have said chief, but he was always out doing different things. Yeah. Next to him is a chief speaking trumpet that it came from Chico, and this is what the chief used to shout into when they were before they had loudspeakers and stuff today.
Oh, is this a trumpet? It's sort of like a loudspeaker type thing?
Yeah, he was able to holler at the firemen what to do. So,
interesting.
And down at the bottom here is a sculpture that was commissioned by a noted sculptor for an award for Chief Miller for all what he had done for the fire department. But this award was from donations throughout the community and the fire department, and it was done by a noted sculptor from the coast. It's Hobart, I think it was his name. And it was
oh, yeah, I recognize that name. Yeah. Trumpet is for whom?
It was for Moonley for 53 years of service.
53 years in the fire department.
Most of the time he was assistant chief. The lower part is some of our old brass nozzles and what have you. On the back wall is the bottom of the hand pumper wash box. You can see how deteriorated it was, rotten when it was restored. And then that we saved a part of the wash box, and that was the bottom. It was all rotted and it needed the work being done. Below it is a portable pump used by the forestry in the 1930s until lighter pumps came into being. And we had also in the Weaverville Fire Department, these pumps are called the Pacific Marine, very reliable but heavy, and when they were pumping, there was never a problem with them.
Okay, do they use anything like this today?
They use pumps like this today, but they're made with a lot lighter material and easier to handle.
Okay, so this was quite heavy.
Yeah, not quite as heavy.
Okay.
We have fire extinguishers. At the top row is called a grenade fire extinguisher. I think it was mostly carbon tetrachloride. And they were able to throw these on the fire. And some of them had a fusible link because they got heat that they would snap up and break the bottle. But most of them they were to be thrown.
And what did they do when they threw them on the fire?
They just throw them like a hand grenade, and they broke and spread it to liquid.
What kind of liquid was in them?
It was carbon tetrachloride, and it was a vaporizing liquid. And it was kind of if you were in a confined area, it was not good to be in the same atmosphere with that.
I see.
We have several different varieties of them.
Uh-huh.
And then underneath there was a fusible link on some of them that you can see here.
Uh-huh.
And if there's if they would take a certain temperature and then they would burst and spray on the fire.
And how did they use these? I mean, this looks like a light fixture to me.
It does look like a light fixture, and they hung on walls at the home. And if you had a fire, you could take them up out of there and you can bomb, you throw it at the fire.
You just throw it at the fire.
It came obsolete too.
I see. Okay, and the other ones here.
The other one, them tubes was a powder, and it was like you had to disperse it. You had to throw that powder. It was baking soda mostly, that compound, and you just sprinkle that powder on the fire.
Okay, so baking soda is a pretty good fire retardant, huh?
It was for extinguishing fires.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's great.
Then down here is these are hand pump carbon cord fire extinguishers. It was really popular, and it feels a hazard material today. But there are many types of these hand pump carbon cord fire extinguishers, and they were mounted on all sorts of walls, equipment, machinery, and what have you. They could be used on electrical fires, in fact.
Okay, so fascinating array of fire extinguishers here.
You know, these little special ones were carried by loggers, and they can put them in their pocket and take them out in the woods with them with their chainsaws and stuff.
That would fit in the pocket? I made the littler ones, maybe.
Yeah, the little ones like that. And of course, they're not legal today.
What was inside them?
Well, if the special chemical, I hard to say the name, it was developed by the Germans. And I would have a difficulty to announce it, but it's supposed to be a pretty good extinguishing agent.
These on the bottom are what?
Okay, over here, this is just like the ones we use today. It's a powder fire extinguisher, and it's air pressure expels the powder out to the fire.
I see. And what kind of powder is in there?
It was the same thing with the a mixture of soda and
so baking soda is a prime ingredient in that too.
Yes.
Excellent.
Now these here are a little bit different. These were there was a soda and acid, and with the soda acid fire extinguisher, you upend them, and they had a stopper in them, and the stopper fell out. The acid mixed with the soda water, and it formed a gas and created a pressure, and they expel it out the hose.
Wow.
Now these things are different because their stopper was held in by these handles. Where if you turned it upside down, it wouldn't work unless you opened the stopper up. The reason was this: they carried these on apparatus, and the engine bouncing wouldn't bounce the stopper out. But these went on the floor were soda and acid, and all they had was a loose stopper, and if you upend them, they would discharge the water. And some of them were foam, and that was a different mixture than the soda and acid fire extinguishers.
Okay, so they've been experimenting with different sorts of mixtures for fire extinguishing, right?
And they used these for a long time, and they got to be a safety hazard. They exploded and stuff like that.
Oh.
And that one over there is a pressurized water fire extinguisher. That's the chrome one. Next to them is carbon tetrachloride. They were used around in industrial machinery and electrical fires and stuff like that.
So there are different extinguishers for different types of
different
fires.
and different types of use.
God, you never knew there were so many different kinds.
Uses. Yeah, and then that big heavy tank one, that was an early one. That was a carbon dioxide fire extinguisher that just put a fog out.
Wow. Okay. Are all the volunteer fire chiefs?
All the volunteer fire chiefs that we researched out. And this is a chart of what they were, but we put the dates that they served. And in the beginning, the fire department, the chief served 1 year. And it was quite prestigious to get into the chief position. These are all sorts of people who are in the community, and a lot of them are really prominent citizens of Weaverville.
And were they always, did they always have a salary, or were they usually always volunteer?
They had no salary, they're all volunteers. These are all volunteer chiefs here, yeah.
These are all the chiefs from way back when. Looking at here?
This here is a resuscitator we used in the early, late 50s and 60s. And this was used in the medical, where it would administer auction to a victim. It either did it by by demand or a free flow, and it came with some tanks. I don't think we used these before we had the.
And how long would these last to resuscitate someone?
It'll last quite a long time. If a person required oxygen.
Okay.
Then these here are cutting torches for rescue. Oxygen settling cutting torches. They were used for rescue work.
Okay, so all this was on the fire engine?
Yes, they are on the rescue truck.
Or the rescue truck.
Under here we have a lot of the old brass nozzles and fittings. And today modern stuff is more lighter and a lot more easier to use. On the bottom part of it is some more valves and fittings. Like over here was a Blake four-way valve we used on the hydrants around here when we had a fire. And for a long time, these were the hydrants we had in town. They were full of warfighting. And they would freeze every year if we didn't protect them. So when these were out throughout town, we had to put a barrel over them and fill the barrel with sawdust.
that would protect them from the frost. Oh yeah, still have to do such things today, I guess. Okay. So I guess we'll talk about that wall when you're ready here. It's starting to show some of the photos of the firemen that were active or special in the department. And over on this one here was Vernon Ryan and Pete Van Meter. Pete had the dry goods store, and Van Ryan had a market on Main Street. And what year was this taken? This was probably taken in about 1980, something like that. In the 80s? Yeah. 1980s? Yeah. Well, that's not so long ago. Yeah, the old timers, yeah. They were all businessmen. And then we're starting to get some of these are district department paid chiefs over here. These two have passed away now. And then we have some more that we have to put up there. It's ongoing now. Oh, yeah. Over here is a award given by to Richard DeRocher here in town today by the International Association of Fire Chiefs. We had a bad fire one New Year night, and we had 3 children trapped in the fire, and he was able to get one of them out, and he's alive today, but we lost 2 kids. But he made the rescue and got one out. These are our heroes. They really are. He was honored, and that's the award they gave him for in the fire service. These are definitely our heroes. What is this up here? Up ahead, we're looking at a water pipe that was used in town, made of wood. A water pipe made of wood? Yeah, it was bored out, and they had many feet of this in town. And what they joined this together, they formed they cut it V like that, and they put it together like this, and wrapped it with burlap, and put pitch around it for the water system for the town. Wow! Now, this is what a short chunk looked like. We have here, and you can see the whole board out, the rest of it. So why would they use wood as a water pipe? It was at the time. It was an area where they're at. It was in the horse and buggy days, and they had to bring steel pipe in from the city, and that was a big thing. And they had plenty of this. Oh, I see. So they had plenty of wood. So this is a way to transport water. Yeah, and the steel pipe would have been difficult to get a hold of.
Interesting. So this ran how far through town? I mean, as far as...
When I got it, it was all through Main Street.
Oh, I
There
see.
was over 1,000 feet of it or so.
Okay, did they have different areas where they could tap into it, or?
They just drilled down with an auger,
Uh-huh.
and that's kind of some of it, and when they weren't using, they just put a plug in it.
Okay.
And that was their water system for a while, until they were able to get steel pipe.
Okay. Looking at here.
You're looking at a chemical fire engine that the district purchased in the beginning in about 1907. It was used quite a lot in the fire district, in the town. It was, the way I got it, it was under the bandstand. It put out a lot of fire, more than anything they had, because it was highly mobile, and they can get 100 gallons of water on a fire real fast. Now, the way they pressurized this water was by soda and acid again. They had an acid up here with a loose stopper, and when they wanted to activate this fire extinguisher, they turned this tank over. There's a wheel back there that turned the tank over. The acid would mix with the solution, and it would pressurize. And this.
Oh, so the acid pressurized the solution.
And pushed the water out.
Oh, Peter.
And a lot of the fires in town were, if they catch it small, they could save the building. So they were able to get this out real fast, and they had an organized crew on it, and they drilled with it quite often. Now, with the hand pumper again, it didn't do too many fires because it was awkward to set up.
Mm-hmm.
But about 1914, the Weaverville hotel took fire. That was really a major fire where they could lose the town. And they did get this hand pumper out. They put it in a sump hole in Garden Gulch, and they started using the pumper. Well, it was a large fire, and it required, so most of the town people showed up to help man this hand pumper. The women, children, anybody could, they got on this and pumped while they worked that fire. And they were able to put the fire out in the Weaverville Hotel, which at that time was really amazing.
And how much damage was done?
They said it burned all the upper story off.
Oh, I see. And the whole community came to do this.
It came to ladies, everybody, because the firemen were working, and it took a lot of manpower or people power to run the pumper.
What a great story. Some old radio systems?
Yeah, the old portable hand systems that were used, they became obsolete now. We start getting into these in the late 60s up to the present day. We use these small handsets like that.
Some of these look familiar to me.
Yeah, they haven't changed very much.
No, they haven't. And this is an old fire bell?
This was it's a fire bell. We still have this fire truck. It's an old 1917 American LaFrance fire truck. It's being worked on, and this is the bell off of it. The people have the bell in here now because they use it at services, memorials for firemen.
Oh, okay. I think we used this for the firefighter memorial a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I'm sure you
in
did.
Junction City.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. Okay.
And now we can talk about the alarm system.
Oh, the alarm system. Okay.
Yeah, this is quite interesting because this is a Gamewell alarm system, like I told you, and it's a major alarm system. They're still used today, only a more modern style. When a box was pulled, and the alarm box was pulled at this location, the number of this box came into the fire station, and this is the indicator. And if a box like 43 was pulled, it'll show 43 up there.
Wow.
And the fireman, by looking on this chart, can come over here and tell them where that alarm was coming into, and they could respond. So as the alarm came in on here, they wanted to repeat it, so they would open up this door here, and they'd take these wheels here, like if I could find 43, and they could put it up there, and it would repeat itself. How many times you wanted to repeat that alarm, and it kept. So the alarm was. We had sirens, we had bells, and we had the horn.
Mhm.
So at different times. So the alarm would come in on here, we'd transfer over on here, and the town could hear the alarm going off.
Ah. And they knew where it was by the number?
Yeah. So
Once again.
some of this is some of the controls. It was battery power in case you lose your street power. And this is some of the gauge and stuff that we used on it.
And it was regular batteries, right?
It'd go over the batteries if you lost the power.
Oh, okay. We're looking at some alarm systems here?
They're personal alarm system they call PASS.
Mm-hmm.
And these were on if the fireman remained motionless for any time, these would send off the alarm where he was at.
Okay, this is the one we were looking at earlier, but these are...
Earlier, yes.
Yeah, these are more modern ones.
More modern ones. Over here is some more of our alarm systems, as these were called home receivers.
Uh-huh.
And as we were getting more modern, people would, we were able to broadcast on the radio, and they would pick up the signals on these radios in their homes, and we tell them where the fire was at.
Oh, and this was on a regular frequency, like?
The dispatcher could activate these receivers from whoever was answering the fire phone.
Okay, do we have this at all now?
This is similar to today. Only most of the time now they're using pagers.
I see.
Yeah, there's something like this here, pager up there.
Uh-huh. So the remote or the reverse 911 system, does this?
Well, this was really before we had 911 system, just before it came in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what all the members had these radios in their house, and the dispatcher would tell them they had an alarm and where it was at.
I see.
Now this over here was a telephone we gave out in, and this phone was interesting. It went to 20, when a person dialed the fire number, that's before 9/11, they would, 20 people would answer this phone. Well, we try to get only certain people to answer it, and the rest of the people just listen. But a lot of the people just wouldn't listen, and we had grandmothers answering the phone, and we had kids answering the phone. You can imagine somebody's trying to call an emergency, and we got this going on. So we were glad to get rid of this system.
So you had everybody on the phone line at the same time?
With this button, 20 people could set off the town alarm, and the horn would start blowing.
Oh, amazing.
So then after this phone, 9/11 came in, and then the sheriff department was answering our alarms.
The very early photos, huh?
Yes, this one even goes back to before we had a fire company.
And what year?
I think it was 1899.
You had fires, but no fire company.
No, the neighbors spoofing the fire department. They had a mule and a cart, and guys running, and they were saying Weaverville Fire Department on it. That's why they had a fire department.
Oh, cute.
And over there with certificates they gave firemen, if you were really good in the fire department, behave yourself, and you got this is an exempt certificate. All firemen, after a while, got these exempt certificates, and this exempt you from the poll tax and jury duty, I believe.
Jury duty?
Yeah. So it gave you a little bit of privileges.
Oh, I see.
And then over here is some of the old photos, 1907. It showed the 4th of July parade, which they always did, and how they decorated their hose carts. This is the fire chief Barnacle on his horse here.
My goodness. Goes way back.
Yeah.
So tell me, Dick, do you have any old stories?
Oh, I really don't.
The old fire pumper?
That was the hand pumper
It's the hand pumper?
prior to the work in 1980.
Uh-huh. Okay. Okay, we're looking at a story here.
That we rescued a cow in the well.
You rescued a cow in the well. Tell me about that, Dick.
The cow fell into a well, and it was about maybe 10 to 15 feet down in the well, not too much water, and they asked us if we would help get the cow out. Well, one of our firemen, Larry Halsey,
Larry Helsley?
climbed down on top of the cow, and we were able to work a net underneath him, a cargo net.
Uh-huh.
And we had a forklift, we brought the cow out.
But going back to the rescue business, we had occasion where we had a young ladies where we have had a young teenager high up in a tree. She couldn't come down, and we had trouble getting her out of the tree. It goes off the road. We had a young young teenager on a roof. We mad at her mother, and she wouldn't come down. We took care of that. But one of the most challenging rescues like that, we had a kitten in the well downtown on Main Street, and this well was underneath an older lady's house. The kitten was doing a lot of meowing, and she was just upset. Her kitten was in this well. So to rescue this cat, there was a very limited crawl space. We were able to get two young firemen, and they crushed a laundry basket and put a rope on it, and they were able to crawl under this house that was really confined. They got to the well and lowered the basket down. The kitty would not get in the basket.
Figures. Typical cat.
After many tries. I was upstairs talking to the older lady. She was really upset. And I said, we're going to probably might have to take your kitchen floor out to get to that cat, you know. So one of our enterprising young firemen he ran to the corner store and he got the most smelliest cat food you could think of. They smeared it into that laundry basket, and them young guys crawled back up underneath there. They dropped the basket down, and that cat just leaped right into the basket. So we had to chop up the floor, and we brought the kitty out, and I was pretty grateful to the older lady that we were able to save a cat.
Oh, that's a great story. Oh, Dick, thank you so much for giving us this tour. It's just been great, and just to see what our fire department does and where it came from. Do you have any parting remarks?
Would you like to? I would like to talk about the hose carts there.
The what?
The hose carts behind me.
Okay, great. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, there's a little story with them.
Okay.
On the side of them.
So this hose cart.
Yeah, the district purchased several of these hose carts in 1907. They came into the fire department, and they were spaced throughout town from Main Street to Mill Street, which is Fagtown.
How many were there?
There were several.
Mm-hmm.
And during an alarm, the sign group would take their hose cart and run to the fire with it. They would hook up to a hydrant and run and spray water on the fire. Well, the hydrants didn't have too much pressure, but that was the reason for them. In 1921, they had the juvenile members of the fire department. The juvenile members were 15 to 18-year-olds, and they put one at the high school where they could respond to these hose carts. These guys, the firemen treated these hose carts just like we treated our fire engines today. They're really proud of them, they decorated them, and they drilled with them.
And they took really good care.
And there was competition among them, who first got to a fire. They were reprimanded by the chief for going the wrong way with the hose carts doing an alarm, and they didn't keep the upkeep on the hose carts. Okay, with that I can close her off. Yeah.
Oh, great! What a great history. Thank you so much, Dick.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have any stories. I want to hear one. Come on.
I want to tell a little off story, and it involved, we were returning from an event back to the fire station, and we took the back street. On the way back to the station, we passed this cottage that was fully involved in smoke. It was smoke everywhere in it. So actually, we stopped the fire engine, and the crew got off in quite a hurry, and we hammered on the door. We did get a quick answer, so we barged on in, and we ran upon these two older couples on the couch, and the lady was holding a little piece of material up in front of her, and he was trying to get his pants on, and we told him their place was on fire, and we continued on into the house, and we went to the back bedroom. Well, apparently they were having a romance in the bedroom and set fire to the bed, and so they moved to the living room. Well, we removed took the mattress outside and got some of the smoke out, and they returned back to their business. We returned back to the station.
So you saved their house, but not their reputation.
Yeah. So that was one of our off stories.
Oh, that was cute. Thank you so much, Dick. We appreciate your contribution here and the whole history.
Because I think a lot about the fire department, and it's quite a rewarding in many ways. It's a good pinpoint of great people.
It certainly is, and we appreciate everything they do.
It's a learning experience all the time.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of very, very special people.
It couldn't be anything better to volunteer for it in the community.
I totally agree. Thank you again.
And I think that we better close.